One of the games of the week, Jacksonville Jaguars at the Houston Texans. A battle now in the AFC South. The Jags are favored by 1.5 in Houston. Of course, Houston won the first matchup back in week 3. It was the Texans, it's the catalyst for their turnaround this season. Remember, Houston started the season 0-2. They go to Jacksonville, win 37-17. And, since that point, they're 6-2. So Texans, 3-game winning streak, 6-2 in their last 8, and one of the hottest teams in the NFL. C.J. Stroud playing unbelievable football right now, especially for a rookie. I do think now I'm starting to see him in the MVP conversation. I get it, and I think it's valid. Still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of games to be played. But, Houston looking really good right now, man.
No, they are. I mean, everything for them is working well at the moment. The offense looks great. The defense is playing well. Like, that's one of the underreported parts of this. Everyone's focusing on C.J. Stroud. By proxy, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, PFF Bobby, like all the things that are happening on offense, but the defense is playing really well as well. Like DeMeco Ryans probably doesn't get enough credit for what's happening in Houston at the moment because all the focus is on the offense, but that defense is taking big steps forward as well. So everything's coming up Houston.
Yeah, we mentioned on the Monday show too, Derek Stingley coming back. He had a rough rep on that deep ball to Rondale Moore, but other than that, looked pretty good since coming back from injury, having Stingley on the outside, having Jonathan Grenard and Will Anderson rushing the passer. So yeah, I like the way Houston's defense is coming together. Linebacker Blake Cashman having a career year, been one of the more just breakout player, whatever you want to call him, surprising players of the season for Houston. Here's the other one, Jags defense, right? Been excellent all season. They've had at least two horrendous games. I think it's just 2. Both against Kyle Shanahan's 49ers, Bobby Slowick's Houston Texans. The 2 worst games of the season for this Jags defense as far as EPA per play, points, whichever measure you want to use. The Houston offense scored 30. They had a fullback kickoff return for the other 7.
Yes.
Houston's offense scored 30 against the Jags. The Niners' offense scored 34 against the Jags. The 2 games that the Jags' defense looked the worst were against the Shanahan and his protege, Bobby Slowick. So how much of that is going to be a factor here, scheme-wise, in that matchup?
There was another weird play in that game, right? There was the fullback kickoff return. Didn't they have a block kick or something in there as well? Like, that was one of those games where Trevor Lawrence was getting hosed by everybody around him.
Yeah,
because it was consecutive. Like Kansas City put the ball in the end zone 4 times, and none of them were touchdowns.
And then the next week
was this kickoff return. There was something else in there. I think it was a blocked kick. So there was a bunch of weird plays in there that had Trevor Lawrence getting hosed. Because Lawrence, I think, in that game, he had an 83 grade, despite only having 1 touchdown.
He had 1 bad pick in there. Everything else was decent,
right?
If I remember.
But I mean, your point is a good one, which is that that was one of those impeccable C.J. Stroud Houston offense games, like 9.3 yards per attempt by him, a passer rating of 118.8. They carved up this Jacksonville defense.
Tank Dell getting behind the defense. There was blown coverages by the Jags. I mean, so I wonder if this ends up being one of those matchup games. Early last season, Trevor Lawrence struggled against the Texans as well. They bounced back and won pretty handily in Week 17, but I wonder if this ends up becoming one of those matchup deals, those inside the division, and Houston just ends up with the Jags number. There's not enough evidence here to say that. I'm just theorizing that maybe the Shanahan offense is a good matchup for Houston against Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable theory on the basis that it's a good matchup against most defenses. So, if their 2 worst games have come against that specific type of offense twice, it's at least a good starting point to work on a theory, And I have the way Stroud is playing right now, A, fantastically, B, not letting mistakes affect him. That's the most impressive thing at the moment is, the first few weeks, the mistakes hadn't actually – he wasn't being punished for the mistakes. So at that point, it's easy to be like, well, of course the mistakes aren't affecting anything because they're still resulting in good plays, or it's not actually damaging the offense in any way. his mistakes over the last couple of weeks have damaged the offense. They've really hurt them, and yet it hasn't knocked him off his stride at all. Like, he had that line about, Steph Curry keeps shooting even when he misses. Like, that does genuinely appear to be his attitude of, who cares? Everyone's going to miss. The Jordan thing, right? Like, I've missed more shots than anybody in league history. That's not the point. Like, you keep taking the shot because you make them, and that's what wins the game. Like, he genuinely seems to have that attitude, and right now that's standing in his stead. Every mistake he makes, it's like it didn't happen. He just bounces to the next play and comes back and redresses it.
And as I said the other day, it's not just him sitting in clean pockets and hitting throws. I think that's what he was doing mostly early in the year. That was all right, when he gets a clean pocket, it's impressive. He's accurate. He throws the ball head high, and he's going to second reads. He's doing impressive quarterback things. But now he's like legit feeling it. I mean, under pressure, he's doing it.
He's looking like C.J. Stroud versus Georgia. Like that. Yeah. Remember, the whole narrative on C.J. Stroud as a prospect effectively boiled down to, are you getting the guy that showed up in the game against Georgia in the college football playoffs, or are you getting the other guy that never really showed that for the rest of his college career? And I think it was a fair question to ask because the rest of the evidence was so much larger, but that was the biggest game on the biggest stage and showed everything you want to see. Right now we are seeing the Georgia C.J. Stroud all the time. Like, that's the guy he is in the NFL at the moment, albeit potentially aided by PFF Bobby and other elements around him, but he's playing like that.
So the Jags are another team that are, because of the Texans game in Week 3 or the Niners game a couple weeks ago, seemed tough to predict, right? When are the Jags going to just lay an egg as they've done a couple times this year, or other times where they look like one of the better teams in the NFL? They're favored by 1.5 against Houston. I think Trevor Lawrence last week, he had another very good game. It did feel like it was high. He was making some challenging throws, almost unnecessarily challenging throws, and hitting all of them. And I need the Jags to scheme it up a little bit better there instead of putting so much on his plate. I don't know if they got it. Want to see Derek Stingley against Calvin Ridley. Want to see Houston's new run game against Jacksonville's run defense, which has been really good. Remember, Houston's run the ball much better these last few weeks. A lot to watch here, man. I think I'm buying Houston, though. 1.5 point underdogs. Where are you going in this one?
Yeah, I'll buy into the same thing. I am becoming a believer.
Becoming a believer.
Mm-hmm.
They're 2-0 since breakfast with Bobby.
That's true.
2-0.
That's true.
We'll keep that stat.
Man, I can't wait until he lets me give him the rugby plays. He was open to it.